Welcome to the fastest stop in town. Today on Masechtas Sotah Daf Chaf Tes. We are going to begin on Chaf Tes Amud Aleph, about 12 lines from the top. Rav Gidol Marav Davar Sheish Bo Das Lishoyel. If you have a situation where there's a suffix, which we learned about yesterday, that we actually derived from a Sotah, that if there is someone to ask, that's when we apply this din of suffix Bershus Hayachid Sveiko Tame, because that is the situation of a Sotah. A Sotah secludes herself with another man, which is a Rishus Yachid, and there is someone to ask. However, as we learn, when it comes to Tumah Sheretz, if there's a suffix and there's no one to ask, so then we don't apply this din, because it has to be similar to the din of a Sotah. So the truth is, we've learned this out elsewhere, not just from Sotah. Davar sheish bo das lishol, the ein bo das lishol, mahaikra nafka. We actually learn that from a different pasuk. When it comes to kodshim, habasar sheyiga b'chol tami lo ya'achel. So if you have meat that asher yiga, which is touched by anyone or anything that was tame, lo ya'achel, which means if you know for certain that this meat was touched, so then you're not allowed to eat it, because it's definitely tamei. So in this, we make a diak. Vadai tamehu do yachel. That's only because you know for sure that it was touched. Mashma hasafik tamei, v'safik tahar yachel. In the situation where you're not sure, where there's a doubt, was this thing touched or not, then you could eat it. Ema seifa, but look at the end of the pasuk. B'habasar kol tahar yachel basar. It says the basar of anything which is tar you could eat. The vadi tarhu di achal basar. Hasavik tami savik tar lo yochal. It's mashma over here, the opposite. It's only that you're allowed to eat it when you know for sure that it's fine. Mashma in the case of a suffix, you're not allowed to eat. So it's an absolute steer in the psukim. El walav shemamina. The fact that we have this, we can derive. It depends on the situation. Kan sheish bodas Lishael, kan she'in bodas lishael. So, just like the case of a Sotah over here, if there's someone to ask, that's when we say, even by a case of a suffix, it's tameh. However, if there's no one there to ask, so then we say that the din is not that way. Okay, so the question is, why then do we need to learn this out from Sotah, if we already learned it out from Kachim? The Israch, the Rav Gidol, Marav Israch, Lemigma Masaita. You learn out the same din from these two cases because each one teaches us something unique. And this is question 5 and TB 10. Dim Rav Haba Mina Ben Bershus Yachid Ben Bershus Harabim. Because the whole din of Tumah could take place in private. It could take place in Rishus Harabim. And so you would think that there's no distinction between Bershus Harabim and Bershus Yachid. The only distinction is Dafka Das Lishoel, Israel Chamigma Masaita. And therefore we learn out from Sotah that this din of suffix is on, that suffix Tumah is Dafka Bershus Yachid. Ve'im Masaita, if you don't learn from Sotah, Habamina Adi Ika Das Noigea Umagia, Sricha. So it says Rashi, B'matamba v'nitba kisoita di'esh ba das. You have her das, the woman is there. V'yesh das beboil, and him, hamatama, the one who's going to who's causing all these problems. So you would think, kivan di'esh bo das b'zeh shenitba of a matama lo be'inan das. So the whole point is that if you only learn from Sotah, you would think that you have to have das on both sides. However, when it comes to Kanshim, so maybe in that situation, we don't apply this din, because Das Lishoel needs to be Das of the one who is becoming Tameh, the one who is making that person Tameh. Which would be a problem if we're dealing with the Sheretz, because the Sheretz itself, even if there was someone there, but the thing itself is not capable to be asked a question. That's why it's not necessary they have to have both elements, just as long as you have anyone there that is capable to answer a question. So, as we mentioned in our Mishnah, in our lengthy Mishnah, which introduced this parak, Boba Yoim, this is referring to the days of Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, who was appointed as Nasi, who took over from Rabbi Gamliel. So it says that one of the things that was derived was klicheres asher yipol mehem el toichoi. We have a klicheres, and you have a sheretz that falls into the kli. Now, the sheretz is an avatoma, and the kli is a rishon. Kol asher b'tocho yitma. So anything in it is tameh, which means that the food becomes a sheni l'toma. Einu oimer tameh el yitma l'tameh cherem liman al kikar sheni shematamas ashlishi. So actually, we went out from here that not only is it shaykh to get to a sheni l'toma, but even to a shlishi l'toma, which typically we understand that oichad u'mash can only stop at the sheni level, but it cannot become a shlishi. However, that exception is made when it comes to truma that can even be on a shlishi level, or kodshim, in which can go to a revi level. So with that said, let's continue with the Gemara. So from the fact the pasuk the ein lo this pasuk, so lama tameh. So why is this person tameh? Where is the source of the halacha of shlishi by truma? So look at Rashi. If there's no pasuk in the Torah, lamahu tameh b'truma. Rav Yochanan the Kemer asid dor acher l'taharai, because Mishnah later on said that a future generation is going to come to Mimataret. Abuhu hayim matamo. You're making it tameh. So the question is, if there's no pasuk, so then how could he say it's tameh on a shlishi level? How could truma become tameh on a shlishi level? Or maybe Hud Marav minatara ein lo. Minatara, you're right, there's no pasuk to support it. Within Kavachaimer Yeshul, however, there's a Kavachaimer that will show that truma does become tameh on a shlishi level. Umat tful yoim. So you have a person who's a tful yoim, which the sun has not yet set. So in that state, shemuter b'chulin, he's only allowed to eat chulin, paisel b'truma. We know that, as the very first mission Brachos says, you have to wait until sunset for the Kohen who it was tameh to be able to eat truma. Now he can't eat truma if it's still daytime, but of course he's allowed to eat chulin. That's not a problem. However, he's not allowed to eat truma. So kikar sheni, if you have bread which is on the sheni level, shapaisel b'chulin, that would pasel chulin enudin shiasa shlishi b'truma. So certainly you could make bread or truma into a shlishi. Says Rashi, Tlasik Krogsivi. There's 3 psukim. Tavel b'oila mutter l'chulin meiser. If let's say a person was tavel, it's basically 3 steps. You went to the mikvah, and you came out. So you're allowed to eat chulin, and you're also allowed to have meiser. Here shim shoyich b'truma. Once the sun sets, you can eat truma. However, you're mechusiki purim. Hevi kaparaso batuma shehibas carbon muta b'kachim. The next day, on the 8th day, you bring your carbon, then you can eat kachim. So says Rashi, kikar sheni shepas b'chulin k'neksiv kol asher b'tzaycha yitma. We said that anything, if you have a sheretz that went into this klicheres, it becomes tameh. So chulin u'truma kachim b'mashma. Now this doesn't say what it's referring to, what food it is. So it could be referring to even chulin, truma kachim. Dinu shiasa shlishi b'truma. So it must be that this food is even talking about chulin. V'dayoi. So therefore, what do we say? So therefore, we say that so too it must be. If it can become chulin can become a sheni, then certainly truma should become a shlishi. V'dayoi, because why? We see in this Kavachaimer that chulin were more lenient than truma. Chulin you could eat when you are you haven't achieved erev shemesh, but you can't eat truma. You can't eat truma yet. So it must be chulin were more lenient than truma. So too when it comes to chulin, which becomes a sheni, so truma must become a shlishi. In fact, Rashi, we only say dayoi on a Kavachaimer. V'dayo leikol meimer the im kain batal Kavachaimer. The truth is, normally we say dayoi, dayol b'minlias kanadain, So therefore, because of that, the Kal V'chomer can only go up until where you learn up from. But if you say Dayai, then there's no Kal V'chomer at all. So the only time we say Dayai is if there's still a Kal V'chomer. We just don't go too far in the Kal V'chomer. However, if Dayai will destroy the entire Kal V'chomer, we don't say Dayai. That's the important klal that Rashi explains. Because the pasuk clearly says that food, just like truma and chulin alike, can become a sheni. So the Kal V'chomer isn't teaching anything about truma becoming a sheni. We already know that. We already know chulin can become a sheni. So the Kal V'chomer is telling you that truma can become a shlishi. The heicha the mifrach Kal V'chomer lo amrin and dayai. Whenever you remove a Kal V'chomer, as the Gemara in Baba Kama says, we don't apply dayai. Okay. So that's the Kal V'chomer. So let's see it one more time. Matful yoim shemota b'chulin pasal b'truma. So kikar sheni shepasal b'chulin then shiasa shlish b'truma. So yicham meprach malutful yoim shchein avatoma. Yeah, but by the case of the person tful yoim, maybe that's why he makes truma pasal, since he could be chomer, as he may be an avatoma. Says Rashi, Shchein avatoma could gain tummy mace, ozava motzar shein betumas and avos. So this tvul yom, maybe the reason why we're saying this whole din is why there's a problem with the truma is just because he's an avatoma. So because of that, maybe that's the reason why we're strict when it comes to truma. But lav dafka, should we then therefore learn that so too when it comes to truma should become a shlish l'tuma? Maybe not. So Teisi, so the Gemara says, as we continue the Testament days, mitzvul yom de sheretz. What does that mean? So it says Taisus, Adam shenaga b'sheretz. The person touches the sheretz, which the sheretz is a rishon, is an avatoma rather, and you touching it become a rishon. Rishon l'tuma hoya. So you become a rishon. V'lo avatoma. You're not an av. You're a rishon now. V'chitaval, and when you went to the mikveh, hotul chulin v'asul l'truma. So now what we're saying, and actually this is actually also Rashi. Whoops. Okay, there's no Taisus over here. So that's actually Rashi says. So this is what is coming to tell you, this din, that we're not talking about a person's avatoma, person's rishon l'toma. So malutful yoyim the sheretz shechein b'mino avatoma. Okay, it's true that we're talking about the person is a rishon, but the min, the item itself, the sheretz in itself, is an avatoma. Says Rashi, im haynogeh kli zeh. If it touches this vessel, o adam zeh b'meis nasa avatoma, o tama adam v'kelim, terme b'oichel shenu nasa avatoma, afil al yidei meis. So food could never get to the level of an av, even if it touches a mace. If food touches a mace, the food doesn't become an avatoma. Only an adam and kalim could become. That could happen. Okay, why? Because adam and kalim can become tahor through a mikvah, so they could potentially be an av. So you can't use this Kal V'chomer. So where it says, okay, mal kli cheres shechein matama. So kli cheres yechiach. So kli cheres will disprove you. Why? It says Rashi, she'en b'mino avatoma, because the kli cheres cannot become an avatoma. We're not talking about, a sheretz, because then in itself is shaykh to become an avatoma. Yeah, but so how about what we're doing with a cheres? Kli cheres can only get to the level of a rishon. She'en b'mino avatoma umatam es truma kashu rishon. But if the kli is a rishon, it can make other things into a sheni. So malu kli cheres shechein matama ma'aviroi. Maybe we're more strict when it comes to kli cheres, because even in the airspace, even if the sheretz didn't touch the kli, just going inside the kli, its airspace is matama. So maybe we're strict by kli cheres. That we don't have such a din, v'chayzer a din. Or rizeh, so each of them have different characteristics. However, however, both of them are mutter in chulin, but you cannot eat truma. So kol shekain Kikar sheni shepas b'chulin the place of truma. So therefore, we can again learn out from this Mamatzinu, the Sana Shava, the din of truma to a shlishi. V'dor acher parich mal Sana Shosha b'shachen yesh ben sad chomer. So you can say if we're talking about a tefillah mesheretz or if we're talking about a kli cheres, both of them are sad chomer. Either that mina is avatoma or the kli cheres is matam even ma'avirai. So Rabbi Yochanan Zakkai sad chomer loy parach. He feels that you can't ask such a question. Says Rashi luchashli pircha hoyel ein chaymer b'shneim shavet. They're not equal. So even though each one has a sad chomer, you can really say that about almost any cow, any sad shava. Sheyesh behem sad chomer. So it's an interesting pircha in general. Why would that be a pircha? Because most of the time that would slug up the entirety of any sada shava, of any sada shava. So Tanya Amrav Yoisi Menayin Ravi B'Kodesh Paisel. So that is how we established about a shlishi for truma through a sada shava. So how do we know the next level that kodesh becomes paisel on a Ravi level? So here, instead of us talking about truma, which we said we learned out from the original Kabbalah Chaimer that chulin is zalati chulin can't eat truma because that was before the sun set. Now the sun has set; it's already Seitzah Kachavim, but he's mechusar kippurim. He hasn't brought karbanos the next day, so he's allowed to eat truma. He's allowed to eat kachim. So we already see that we're more strict when it comes to kachim. So because of that, by mechusar kippurim shemot b'truma paisa b'kodesh shlishi shepasa b'truma didin shehu shias Ravi b'kodesh. So since truma is a shlishi, must be that kodesh is a Ravi. V'mani shlishi l'kodesh min Torah, and we're not shlishi. Kodesh becomes shlishi from the Torah. Rabbi Mikabel Chaimer. So how do we see that by kodesh? Shlishi l'kodesh min Torah b'nalwin techsiv v'abasar sheyiga b'chol tamei. When it comes to anything which is meat, you should not touch anything which is tamei. And if it does, well, you're not to eat it. Milo askinan. It must be that what is the pasuk talking about? The nagam sheni, that it was touched on a sheni level and it became a shlishi. V'yam rachman lo yachal revi, and it's saying you're not allowed to eat. You're not allowed to eat. So what is this? We're talking about a case where it became it was a shlishi. The bread is a sheni, and now the basar that touches it becomes a shlishi by kodesh. So now we have a pasuk to teach you a shlishi, and therefore the Ravi is makabel chaymer kinei amron, as we said before. Okay, question 6. Ma'u kabel chaymer Rav Yosi the elf the shlishi paisel b'kodesh. So how do we know that shlishi is paisel b'kodesh? Kabel chaymer shlishi. The shlishi paisel b'kodesh, not Ravi. Okay, so he says, "Ma mechusar kippurim shemot b'truma paisel b'kodesh." Ma mechusar kippurim. Maybe I didn't finish this. Ma mechusar kippurim shemot b'truma paisel b'kodesh. Now to eat kodesh. Shlishi she paisel b'truma and then she asked Ravi b'kodesh. Okay, all right. I'm not sure why it says the yel shlishi paisel b'kodesh. Okay, so that's the pasuk teaches us again. Kodesh is tamei on a shlishi level. Then the kabel chaimer from mechusar kippurim teaches us that kodesh could also become tamei on a Ravi level. Okay, Ravi mekabel chaimer could amran Rav Yochanan tam Rabbi eni yodea mahu. This his reason I understand. Shar tshuvasa b'tzidoi oichel haba machmas tvul yoim yoichiach. Food that comes from a tvul yoim, get a tvul yoim. He went into the mikveh and he's waiting to be able to have the sunset. Shepaisel b'truma. We know at that time, since the sun is not yet, he's not to eat truma. Venu oisi Ravi b'kodesh, and it has not become Ravi b'kodesh. This time the Abba Shol Omer tvul yoim. When it comes to a tvul yoim, Tchila l'kodesh. He has the status of a rishon l'tuma when it comes to kodesh, with tamish shnayim lisol echad, which means he could tummy 2 times. If, in fact, the tful yoyim is considered to be a rishon l'tuma, so he can go sheni and shlishi, which is l'tamish shnayim, and poisel echad. Revi is poisel, because the difference between being latam to live soil, you become tame, or it becomes tame, but it can't be matama other things. So according to the Shita, Abba Shol's and the opinion that Tful Yoim is considered to be like a Rishon L'Toma. Rameir, Oimer Matama Echad Upoisel Echad. Rameir says he's only like a Sheni L'Toma, so, but he could passel to a Revi level, as we're going to see. The Chachamim Oimrim, Kashem Shepoisel Oichle Truma Umashke Truma. Just like he can poisel oichle truma and mashke truma, so how can he poisel it? Because he's a sheni, so therefore you can make truma poisel into a shlishi. Kach poisel oichle kodesh u mashke kodesh, only onto the shlishi, but not onto the revi level. So mask Rav Papa Mamai do have Yosik Rabbanon Svirle. How do he holds like the Rabbanon? Dilmak Abashol Svirle. Maybe he holds like Abashol, and he does make Revi by Kodesh. So therefore it's no question. Says no 1 second. It can't be like Abashol. If he did hold like him, Svirle, Lace il Revi by Kodesh, let the Revi of Kodesh come. Why did he bring the Kavachaymer from Mechusik Yipporim, learn straight from Abashol? Ma oichel haba makmas tvul yoim. When it comes to food that comes from tvul yoim, the tvul yoim gufa mutter b'chulin. He himself is allowed to eat chulin. Amrit ois revi b'kaidish. So oichel shlishi haba makmas sheni, the sheni gufi aser b'chulin. So a shlishi that comes because of a sheni, that the sheni itself is aser in chulin. In a din shaser revi b'kaidish. Why didn't he learn the din that a shlishi could make revi poisel by kachim? Learn it from here, not from Mechusik Yipporim. So it must be he holds like the Chachamim. The Chitema Mishav Dikol Mefar Chmal Tvul Yam Shechein Avatoma. It's an Avatoma, as we said before. So Tine Mechusik Yipporim V'lo Parche. We already brought up from Mechusik Yipporim that it's a Avatoma, and we didn't ask the question, and therefore because of that, again, that is how we're establishing this case. Adkan.